What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review Twisted Metal Season 2, Episodes 4 and 5, Part 2 of their, staggering kind of release schedule. I will say, not a big fan, and I continue to not be a big fan of how they're doing the release, but that doesn't take away from these two episodes, because I kind of say it this time as in, I want more. Now we're in. So obviously we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers. I want to talk about what happens. If you're watching this, it means I assume you've watched 1, 2, 3, and you've probably also watched 4 and 5. These are, I think, the two better episodes. I really think 1, 2, 3 is actually quite solid. 1 started a little slow, and then 2 and 3 were Twisted Metal. A lot of what we saw really in Season 1. This was, okay, Episode 4 is getting ready for the tournament, buying things, really kind of getting this community-type feel. And then Episode 5 is literally the start of the tournament. So we'll talk about kind of both of them separate, and we'll just go from there. Episode 4, I thought really well-rounded. I'll tell you, in the beginning of that episode, I was a little concerned that we were going to go through episodes 4 and 5 without, actually getting to any of the car stuff with the tournament, because I think they say, well, at the end of episode 4, Quiet says, the tournament starts tomorrow, and it's like, oh, let's freaking go. That's what episode 5 is about. But in the beginning of 4, it's like, okay, we're at this city. There's this currency stuff. We're just there, really, to buy things. And it's a good chance for some mixing of characters. Not everybody is being mixed, but an interesting mix of characters that we haven't seen before, primarily Dollface and Sweet Tooth. I thought that was phenomenal, and he finally, they used him, I would say, quite well, Sweet Tooth and Stu, in Season 1. Season 2, at least in those first 3 episodes, they're barely in it, so it's like, all right, I get there a little bit more Sweet Tooth, just in general, he is definitely one-dimensional, but Stu is technically not, and they start to do that more and more in episodes 4 and 5. But I'm so glad that those two got much more to do. I mean, there was just a lot of communication, a lot of emoting, from Sweet Tooth. Loved it. I thought those two were both of them, because Stu gets some really nice character moments. In 4, he kind of starts to go, okay, they're pushing him in one direction. And then in 5, they really pull him to a different direction. So I'm really liking those two. Their conflict that starts to develop in 5 as soon as he sees, I think Mike is his name. As soon as that happens, and then Stu kind of starting to go back and forth. And Sweet Tooth is so hell-bent on revenge with Grim, which I love that connection. And that's really what episode 5 was about, was having these characters kind of go at it verbally and just kind of these almost lore background things. But I really liked 4. I think it had, it definitely had the comedy. It had a lot of, John and Quiet, them trying to get, closer and closer together. Some kind of comedic, even, with their pleasure, some comedic stuff of the vault is freaking lit on fire all around them, and she's worried about his glasses, and he puts them on in the whole room. But there was a lot of comedy there. He puts on the glasses to the kind of leader guy and holds up the picture, and the guy's like, oh, and you think he's gonna see through it because those pictures are terrible, right? They don't actually look like them. And he said, oh, look what laxatives did for him. There was a lot of really nice, I was laughing out loud. I'm laughing just retelling it, but I thought it had a lot of comedic moments. It had a little bit of heart, but it was definitely more of a setup, and again, Dollface and Sweet Tooth kind of coming together and fighting with each other for a second, and then fighting against each other. That was really, really cool. And just the setup of kind of getting weapons. I guess it furthers John's character development, where he starts to see how these people within the walls really see the world and see others, and he's in this mindset where it's some of them are probably good, but others are bad. But he sees kind of these elites, and he's not a big fan. So it had some character moments as well. I would say less so than we've gotten in the past episodes, but it was more of a mix, what they were trying to do with that episode. And then episode 5, again, thank God, because I will say, I feel like this show would have taken a pretty big hit if we went through episodes 4 and 5, and it still was not the tournament. Now, this is a qualifying round, which, that's fun, but I didn't really expect that. This is the stuff we saw in the trailer. That's the fun thing to me, or the interest, whatever you want to say. All of that trailer stuff, when you're seeing all of the bullet fire and the missiles and all this stuff, and kind of a race, because so many of them right now, and I'm very excited for this moment, right? Because they're like, oh, well, we're in the tournament, and Dollface is going to provide support, and Mayhem, she wants to win, right? But it's okay, well, they're going to look out for her, and they play with that, at the end of episode 5. But the thing is, qualifying match is simply deliver the package to the objective, right? And whoever makes it, you're into round 2. Eventually, though, it is a battle royale. And the interesting thing to me is, like, they don't know that yet, right? So this idea that there's going to be alliances, I mean, they know it's every man for themselves. They know there's only one winner, but they definitely talk about it more like it's a race. And I hope this is, by the way, I hope this is not what it actually becomes. I don't want it to be just a race to the finish and whoever wins first place gets the wish. It should be a death match. Now, you got to be careful. You can't kill too many of these characters. Like, I mean, like Mr. Grimm and Axel are kind of those main two, like, new ones. You can't kill Sweet Tooth or Stu, and you can't kill John or Quiet. You can maybe mess with Dollface. You can maybe mess with Mayhem. And you can maybe mess with, Mr. Grimm and Axel. But so they are going to have to be careful. But I like the idea of these characters. Hopefully, they're not like on the same page of what this actually is. Anyway, episode 5 is the tournament, or at least the beginning of it. Calypso, awesome. Some nice comedy moments where the guy, raises his hand to ask the question. And then Calypso's like, I was just going to get to that if you gave me one more second. And he's got the laughter. He does, and he's in everything all of a sudden now, right? Superman. He's a really good actor. Love him in this. I think he does a really, really good job as Calypso. And even, first half of the episode is just, okay, here's our contestants. Here's the vehicles. Some of them are very legendary. Some of the characters, like, we should know, right, from the games. And then, it's Mayhem kind of doing some mind games with them. Again, this kind of lore background stuff. So, like, Raven rejoins, and we get that. Sweet Tooth and Mr. Grimm, that was freaking cool. Stu reunite, and again, like, kind of setting him on a character path. So I thought that was really, really good. And then there was the fighting, and I didn't keep track of, like, time, but it felt like half the episode were explosions and gunfire and all that jazz, which is really, really cool. And you even get a little bit, again, while I think they're starting to play it safe, or they started by playing it safe, I think they'll progressively get kind of more extreme. Even with, like, the Calypso trickery, right? Like, we know from the games, like, and I can't wait for that. Like, his wish is it's literal, too, so you got to be very, very careful what you wish for. 99 out of 100 wishes, are actually going to go very, very badly. You're trying to trick this, like, ultimate master in order to really get your wish. But we're starting to see it, right? Because he talks about the packages. Although, thinking about this, you guys can let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm misreading it. So, like, when the packages are damaged, well, they have to be completely destroyed, right? I think 2-3 shots they're out, right, when they're red. So when they're gone, the one guy got, like, missiled, but then all of a sudden there were missiles, falling from the sky. So I don't know if that's a mix of Calypso just doing things to try to make it a little bit more difficult for the contestants to make it, or when your package is done, it's not like you can just get out of the car and leave. You actually die from that. So that's how I interpreted originally. Now I'm starting to not know that for sure, but you guys can let me know maybe your thoughts. And then, I mean, look, you can only say so much about fighting. It was cool. You get some cool moments, like Sweet Tooth, the actual, like, bobblehead thing on the top of him. You see Mr. Grimm deflecting it with a scythe, like, cool things, definitely. And then, you can still kind of build some character moments, and that is primarily, funny enough, it's primarily 2. It's John and Quiet and Mayhem, and then it's also Sweet Tooth and Stu. And I like that, because those are technically the main characters. Stu and Sweet Tooth, maybe more side stuff. But again, like, you have, okay, there's this absolute rage from Sweet Tooth to put Mr. Grimm down. He doesn't even really care about the objective anymore. And Stu is already, because of that conversation earlier, thinking, he's scolded, like, oh, you left your best friend for dead, and then you teamed up with his killer, and then you're gloating about going on, like, a mass murdering spree, right? So it's like, he's losing himself, he's changing, but then he's also trying to, like, catch himself, mid-go. And Sweet Tooth, obviously, he's not going to care about that situation, right? So I love that, and there's only technically so far it can go. Maybe they split them up and Stu goes back, and then Sweet Tooth is just kind of like a solo act, but clearly, that's going in a certain direction. And then, Mayhem, Quiet, purposely, like, making it so that she can't actually participate, but then she does anyway. And I mean, that ending, I really love. Like, you can sense, again, it's a thing about cars and action, and yet what makes the story or the show so good is that story, is those characters. And, like, you know how much Quiet wants that wish and wants to win, but it's like she really does care about Mayhem, and you can tell when she's holding the wheel and John makes the decision for her, right? Because he kind of is like, all right, well, we have to focus on the objective, and she knows that, and she's going forward, and then he's the one that makes that call, and then obviously she's okay with it, right? But it's interesting, he makes the call, but she clearly very, very much wants to save Mayhem, and they turn around and they go back. Even that shot, by the way, of them turning around, and then everybody going past them, like Axel taking a swerve, and then there's like missiles going by them, super cool shot. And so just in closing, I really think these 2 episodes is the best combination of like what Twisted Metal is as a whole in these 2 episodes. Like episode 4 was a lot of that comedy, a lot of that personality and that like character kind of spark. And then episode 5 was the lore, the vehicles, the chaos, the actual fighting. These 2 episodes really had everything. Like you nail kind of every element. If you're looking for that action, you get half an episode of it. If you're looking for some comedy, you pretty much have all of episode 4, right? So I'm really happy with that, and maybe that's why they timed it the way they did. Episodes 1, 2, 3. Now we got 4 and 5. They work really well together. Now, next week, we get 6 and 7, and we'll see where it goes from there. I imagine end of qualifying round and then getting ready for the final round, or the actual tournament, and then we go from there. Oh, by the way, I just remember, this popped in my head. When Calypso talks about, like, letting the tournament begin, and he, like, changes the sun behind him, oh, my freaking God. Love that. Just visually, that's incredible. And then he's just such a cool character that I hope they do a little bit with, because he's so kind of intimidating and obviously so powerful. I hope there's some conversations with him, and obviously I do think the ending is going to lead to a wish going bad. I imagine maybe Quiet wins, gets her wish, and then it's taken quite literally in a very bad way. That's how I think they're going to go. We'll see over these next couple episodes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.